All right, now pleased to welcome in St. Bonaventure head coach Mark Schmidt. And Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. So I got a bone to pick with you first. We are fellow Massholes, and I look up and down your roster this year, and I do not see one Massachusetts native. This is rare for you. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's disappointing. I got to get on my assistant coaches. There must not have been any good Massachusetts guys this past year. So, but yeah, we've had a lot of luck with Massachusetts guys, and hopefully we can get back to that.
Got to get back to that. Listen, you've got some toughness on this team. We know it, coming off a year in which you swept A-10 regular season outright title for the first time ever in school history, win the tournament, go to the NCAA tournament. One of those special years in a year that was really, really difficult to navigate. What was that like? Because again, at least you guys had winning as a part of the pandemic. A lot of other people did not.
You're exactly right, Jeff. I don't know how the teams that weren't winning, how they dealt with it. It was difficult, and we had a great season. It was still difficult, physically, but more mentally. We had only two non-conference games that we played. We lost, I think, 21 practice days at the very beginning. And I was just lucky that we had, 5 juniors that had played before, that understood, that were really, understood how to prepare for a game. We're able to flip the page when a game was canceled. Yeah. So I was lucky in that, from that standpoint. We had a couple guys leave during mid-year. One was, concerned about the COVID stuff. And, so a lot of guys, you talked to a lot of coaches, and they went through a lot of different things. And I'm just glad that, we won. But at the same time, it was bittersweet. It's, here in Olean, New York, basketball is really, really important. And the Raleigh Center is everything. And not to have the community and the students and the alumni come to the games and experience the season that we had was disappointing. And it was disappointing to our players, not to be able to play in front of, the crowds that we get here at the Raleigh Center. So it was, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad we won, but I'm glad it's over. And, hopefully we can get back to some normalcy.
No doubt. Get those fans back in the stands in Olean, because
exactly right. There's nothing better, Jeff. There's nothing better.
Big home court advantage. People
you got
don't
that
know
right.
That. All right. So you had those 5 juniors. They're all coming back as seniors.
Yes.
They've all won at the highest level in your league. How concerned were you that you wouldn't get those 5 seniors back? And I'm talking about the transfer portal.
Yeah, the transfer portal is crazy. But, we were lucky. I think these 5 guys are character kids. And, we had a really good season last year, but, we went to the NCAA tournament, didn't play well in the LSU game. And I think that drove these kids to, let's try it again. We made it, but there was some disappointment at the end. And let's try to do it again and do it a little bit better. And I think we have great leadership. These kids, they like Olean. They came here for a reason. And I think they understand the reason why they're having success is they're at the right level. They're at the right program. They're in the right system. So that's a positive. Now we had guys leave. The guys that weren't playing, they all left.
They know you brought back your 5 guys that are playing 30 minutes a game. You can't blame them in a way.
Yeah, and I don't fault that for them for that. It's like they come in, and like every coach at the end of the year has their exit interviews and talk about what we can do better and so forth. And all the questions were, Coach, what do you see me playing next year? What was my role? And I said, well, your role is going to be the same that it was last year. And it's like, well, Coach, I want to play more, and I understand that, and we helped them try to get other schools. But I'm just, we're lucky to have those 5 seniors and them coming back and trying to have a better season than we had last year.
You've got a point guard in Kyle that probably is as underrated as any in the country, I think. I mean, people in the A-10, some people nationally know how good he is, but he brings every intangible to the table, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He, a great story is, as a freshman, he was voted captain. Now how many, and that's not me, making the choice. That's his peers. And how many freshmen are voted captain? And we had 2 seniors on the team, and so it just tells you his leadership skills, what the players think about him. He just he's a coach on the floor. He really has a great IQ for the game. He knows what I'm thinking. He's overly, he's competitive and sometimes overly competitive. But he's, as we go, as he goes, we go. It's almost like, you talked about, being from Boston. It's like, I'm a big Tom Brady guy. And I always tell people here, he's our Tom Brady. He's our leader, and he makes us go. And he's everything that we thought he would be and more. He's a special kid.
So you and UCLA, I think, are the only tournament teams that bring back all 5 of their starters. What's going to be the difference? And forget about your bench. We'll get to your bench in a minute here because you brought in all these new faces. You probably don't even know your bench yet.
I don't even know half the names.
Yeah, what you have yet. But starter-wise, the 5 guys that go from junior to senior year, what's going to be the difference? Or is it just going to kind of be more of the same? Who's kind of made a jump and where?
Yeah, the biggest concern, and I've talked to coaches, that in the past that have brought guys back and so forth. And it's really the disease of me, the Pat Riley thing. It's like people getting caught up in, it's my last year. I got to put up numbers. Right. But I think that we have good leadership. We have character guys, as I said earlier. And I think they're not in it for themselves. They've come back to try to win. So that's the most important thing, is that chemistry. Last year, no one really cared who got the baskets. They wanted to win, and we just got to make sure that happens again this year. I think, the X factor for our team is Jalen Attaway. When he came from Miami of Ohio, and we didn't know how good he was. We knew he was athletic, and he played the 3 at Miami. And, we shift him to the 4. And, nowadays, as that 3-4, it's like, you play with 4 guards. But he's a guy that he's got long arms. He's, 6'4", 6'5", but he plays much bigger. So he can guard that power forward, but it's hard for them. He's a mismatch guy. And he's really taken another step. He's that much better this year than he was last year. So he's the X factor. Oshuni is, as you know, he's the reason why, from a defensive standpoint, why we were so good last year. He's got to stay healthy, and who knows, knock on wood, that happens. But he's the guy that's the rim protector. He's the one that helps us, when we make mistakes. And he's a tremendous talent. His offense has come along, but from a defensive standpoint, I haven't coached a better defensive player in my career. And Jaron Holmes is someone that's the steady guy that, hits the open jump shot. It's that toughness. And then Dom Walsh is, he's another X factor. When he's shooting the ball the way he's capable of shooting it, and when he's going to the offensive glass, we're that much better. So we got really, 5 really talented seniors. They do a lot of different things. But as I said, the biggest concern, and we've talked about it, over and over again, is that make sure that they play together, that, they don't have agendas. And I don't think that's going to happen. I trust them that they understand the importance of playing together. And what they did last year, I think, was a great learning experience.
8 new guys and 5 seniors. Like, I don't know how you practice, because those 5 seniors must be like, at times, like, all right, coach, can I come back in like 20 minutes? Do I have to sit through this? You got some transfers, Pitt and Wake, who kind of know what college is about, but it's got to be wild trying to teach this team.
Yeah, something like what I do is, I'll put the 5 seniors out there, and, we dummy our sets and do all that stuff. And so from that standpoint, it's really good in that you can put the 5 seniors out and say, hey, this is how it's run. Right. And those guys, the young guys, can look at it and say, okay, that's the speed. That's, it's sometimes you tell kids, they don't believe it, but once they see it, it's like the doubting Thomas. So I think that's the positive. The negative is, we do the same drills and, over and over again. And these guys have been doing it for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. And then you got the freshmen that are screwing it all up. And then, on the court, I'm a perfectionist. It's like, you got to do it right. So these freshmen and the new guys are doing it 4 or 5 times, and you can see, Lofton or shooting, rolling their eyes, kind of, come on, coach, can we move on? Yeah. So that's been, that's a challenge. It's a struggle. But we're not going to veer off from what we're doing. It's fundamentals and so forth. And it's the same thing every, the first 2 or 3 weeks, just base, setting the base and the foundation and the fundamentals. And, the old guys get tired of it. But it's old school. And that's how I that's how I've done it. It's, we're not going up and down, playing open gym, this is practice. And, but the young guys, it's like anything, Jeff, a couple of the young guys catch it earlier than others. The light comes on earlier than others. And the other guys, it takes time. And from a coaching standpoint, you got to learn what makes each guy go. Everybody learns differently. Some guys learn by going over it on the court. Some guys learn by watching tape. Some guys learn by writing it. So that's the other thing that, you learn as you go along in your career. You can't teach it the same way to everybody, so we're still learning, and finding out how these guys learn. But, we're into it 3 weeks. And, like I said, some guys, they catch on, and some guys, it is a struggle. But hopefully, we can get 3 or 4 of those guys to really, buy into what we're doing and help us.
All right. So there's the question. I mean, two transfers, two
Yes.
high-level Division I transfers, a couple JUCO kids.
Yep.
And then some freshmen.
Yes.
Any insight yet into who might be?
No,
I mean,
I
early.
think, like the freshmen are behind.
Yeah.
That's just natural.
Sure.
I think Koulibaly from Pitt is going to be somebody that's going to be in the mix, strong, physical, has an understanding. And Quadri Adams, another guy from Wake Forest, they're a step ahead because they understand how hard you have to play.
Right.
And I would assume when they were freshmen at Wake and when Kareem was at Pitt, they're like freshman year, like, holy heavens, what is going on? So the speed of the game and how hard you have to work, those guys understand that already. Linton Brown, the junior college All-American, same way. He's a little bit, like a freshman in that he's still trying to figure out how hard to work on a daily basis. But those 3 guys are probably ahead of the freshmen. But 1 or 2 of those freshmen, they're talented kids. But it's, as it's when you're thinking about what to do, and then you finally figure it out, the ball's going down the other way, so it's a learning curve. Those guys are coming in, they're working hard. Now it's them understanding what they're doing and why they're working hard. What are they trying to get out of?
Have you talked about goals and expectations for this season? What are they?
Yeah, we want to do what we did last year. We want to win the Atlantic 10 regular season. We want to win the Atlantic 10 tournament, and we want to go to the NCAA tournament, and we want to advance. Those are the goals. And like now we have smaller goals. We want to be 1-0 by 9:00 on November 9th against Siena. And we want to get better every day. Those smaller goals, but ultimately, we want to do what we did last year and hopefully advance in the NCAA tournament. And we know it's, what we did last year is going to be hard to duplicate. We have the target on our chest and a lot of times, guys become a little bit, softer or
And not in Olean, not in Olean.
Yeah. I hope not. But we understand it's going to be really difficult. Our schedule is, probably the toughest schedule that we've played here in a long, long time. And some people ask me, why did you do it? And I just think that the 5 seniors deserve to play a schedule like this. They've worked extremely hard. They came here for a reason. They've accomplished a lot of their goals. And now it's like they want to play, Connecticut and Newark and Virginia Tech down in Charleston, in Charlotte, and then playing the Charleston Classic against, Boise State and Ole Miss and West Virginia and Clemson, all those guys. And I think, we've done that, and they understand the responsibility that they have, playing a schedule like this. But, my thing is that, in where I am in my career, it's like, why not? Let's go. Let's see how good we can be.
Well, and if you can get out of Olean for a week and get to Charleston.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the winter.
Going to Charleston. Yeah. It's like playing, like when we first started this thing, Jeff, if someone says, hey, we're going to get invited to Charleston Classic, I'd be like, are you serious? That's never going to happen.
Right.
So we've done some really good things here, and to be invited to a tournament like that is just, it's terrific. It's great for our program. And more importantly, it's great for our players.
So year 14, all the lunch spots by now in Olean. Where's your go-to? Where's your go-to lunch spot?
Something, my go-to lunch spot is at the Raleigh Center Cafe. That's where I go. That's where
That's
I go.
it. That's all you got for me?
Yeah. I don't leave this building during the season. And in the summertime, I love to play golf, and Bartlett Country Club is the country club here, and and everybody knows I like to drink beer, and
yes, I know that.
There's a number of places. I have a buddy that has a place that I go to, and so there's a number of places that you can go, and everybody talks about how it's boring in Olean, New York, and it's such a crock. There's so much to do, and everybody talks about the winter time and so forth, and it's like when I'm during the season, you don't go out anyways. Right. That it's 70 degrees in our gym, just like it's 70 degrees in Florida's gym. And then you get up here in the fall and the spring and the summers. It's beautiful. So it's a great place.
It fits you. So going into year 14, Olean does kind of fit you, right? Like, hard hat guy who just wants to work.
I love it. It's small town. It's safe. Basketball is really, really important. The people up here treat me really nice, and my family. We got lakes, and there's so much to do. And I'm not a big city guy, and I'll go to the city, and 2 days later get me the heck out of here. This is just the people are great up here. It's up in Olean, it's like you're born, you raise, you die. And people are hard nosed. And it's just, it fits me and fits my family. And I've been really, really lucky to be able to be here for 14 years and, hopefully, a few more years.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. Good luck. Hopefully I'll get up to Olean this year. And,
I hope you do. We'll check you out. We'll drink some beers if we win.
Yeah, I would. I'd really like to get up there. It's been a long time. It's been the last time I was there. I'm not even going to tell you was.
Yeah, it's. I can't put it into words. People ask me all the time, what is it like to be in Olean or the Riley Center? And I just tell people, you got to come up and see it. And once you come up and see it, you'll believe it. Like, wow, this is something special.
Is it, before I let you go, the last question.
Yeah.
You're ranked for the first time since 1971. I wasn't born the last time you were ranked.
Yeah.
I was just about to, I think it was January 71. I was born that September. All right. So 50 years ago. Is it crazy?
Yeah, it is. It's special. It's to do something for the first time in 50 years is really amazing. And the size of our school and the size of our budgets, and it's a credit to the administration, to my staff, to our players, to the alumni. The people have really committed to this thing, and it hasn't been easy. But to be ranked, first time in 50 years, and especially from where we came from. 15 years ago or 14 years ago when it was really down. But there was a lot of people have been a big part of that. And it's exciting. The alumni, we have our fan fest tonight and it'll be sold out. And, so there's a great buzz, and, expectations are high. And as I told people, it's like, I'd rather have high expectations than no expectations.
Absolutely.
So it's an exciting time to be a Bonaventure fan, and, hopefully, we'll have a good season. Knock on wood, we stay healthy, and we're certainly going to go for it. I can tell you that.
Well, like I said, good luck, Schmitty. Good seeing
Thanks.
You, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for Bet Rivers yet, now is the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, it's more secure, and it's more reliable. Now that basketball season is tipping off, get in on the action at betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while I got you here, let's talk about the Field of 68 Media Network, where college basketball matters most all year round. This is a digital media and podcast network that we've been building over the course of the last year. We have shows hosted by some of your favorite players covering the program that they love the most. AJ Guyton hosts the House of Hoosier. Eric Devendorf covers Syracuse on the scorer's table. Dan Dickow hosts the Gonzaga Bulldog broadcast. We have Florida's Patrick Young and Duke's Andre Dawkins and North Carolina's Shammond Williams and Michigan's Stu Douglas and Illinois' Deion Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. We have more than 30 shows right now So hit the links below and check them all out. And while you're at it, make sure that you go check out the Field of 12 Media Network, your home for college football.
That was the head coach of St. Bonaventure, Mark Schmidt. Now let's talk about the Bonnies with a couple of experts. We've got Jim Root from Three Man Weave, does a great job covering the national scene all across college basketball. And we've got a perspective from Rachel Lindsay from the Buffalo News as we're talking about this very highly anticipated. I don't think there's been a season anticipated like this one in Olean for the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. And Rachel, we'll start right there. First time that the Bonnies appear in the AP Top 25 poll in 50 years. What's the vibe like around this program heading into this campaign?
If you go down to the Olean, Allegheny area in the southern tier, the community is excited, the fan base is excited, the alumni are excited, the donors are excited. Everybody was looking forward to last Monday when it was, in fact, are they going to be ranked? Being ranked this season was pretty much an expectation among the fan base, and even though the players won't say it, it was in the program as well, too, because this team has been building towards that certain point for 4 years now. And like you said earlier, 5 returning starters that score in double figures, that lead defense in the nation. That is almost an anomaly in college basketball, but even in the Power Six, if you look at it as well. So, and I was talking this summer with some of the alums at TBT, and they all said, we have to be ranked this year. This is the year. And if there is no ranking, the expectation just drops.
All right, Jim, why should they be excited? What do you see in this St. Bonaventure team?
Well, there's a lot of reasons to be excited, and it's really the 5 starters, those 5 seniors or fourth-year players. I don't know if we want to call them seniors, given that they could theoretically come back next year. But having all 5 of those guys back really sets you up with a super solid floor. This is a team that made the NCAA tournament last year. They got the auto bid, but they would have been either way as an at-large squad. And really, the change and the upside comes on the bench. They don't bring back anyone else that played a single minute last year besides those top 5. But the bench looks improved, at least. They've got a big-time shooter in Linton Brown. They've got a couple of athletes coming from the ACC, Quadri Adams, and Akil Kareem Koulibaly, hopefully getting that name right. But the depth is stronger this year, which not only adds things off the bench, but it just helps the starters. You can play a little harder. You don't have to worry as much about foul trouble. There's a lot to like here, Fanta, and it looks really good for the St. Bonaventure Bonnies.
And I'm going to add to that as well, too, with the bench. I asked Mark Schmidt last year, how do you cultivate depth on the bench? That was an issue all last season, and I think that could have helped them in the NCAA tournament game if they had reinforcements to come off the bench. Kyle Lofton averages 38 minutes a game for St. Bonaventure. That is ridiculous at any level of basketball. Good ridiculous, but I mean, you could see LSU was wearing them down last year, and that is an area where I kept saying, if St. Bonaventure wants to improve and take that next step, to advance in the NCAA tournament, they've got to deepen the bench. And again, I think Koulibaly and Quadri Adams are excellent additions. They come from that really tough physical ACC league where they were looking for bigger roles. Couldn't get it. With Pitt, the expectations were a little too high for Koulibaly, but I think he's going to find a better place there as well. And another addition with Koulibaly and with Jurasinmi, the incoming JUCO freshman, they get a lot stronger and a lot more tougher under the net as well. So there's a reinforcement for Oshuni as well.
Yeah, Kyle Lofton playing with Quadri Adams for a brief time at Union Catholic High School, so there's a connection there. And Adams, like you said, one of the transfers who brings some power conference experience. They did a nice mix here with the transfer portal. You have a couple of JUCO guys who sharpshooters that can add just that depth, that scoring ability, but you also bulked up. You got better physically. And at the top of that physicality is a player who, folks, if you have not seen a lot of him play, I just looking through his highlights, went through his whole 20-minute reel last season earlier today, and my goodness, he is unlike any player in this sport, in my opinion. I think he's super, super unique, and it's Oshuni, who is going to be a name that if you haven't learned yet, you've been living under a rock, but understand that this kid, he's as good as any versatile big in the country, in my mind, Jim. What stands out to you the most about his skill set?
I think the first thing that leaps out is the shot blocking. I mean, we call him the long arm of the law. I mean, that guy, if you're in the paint, he is going to be challenging your shot, probably blocking it, top 25 in the entire country in block rate. And really, the defensive impact is hard to measure. Like, it's not always about the blocks. If you're in the paint, you're thinking about where he is. You're trying to throw up maybe a floater when you usually take a jumper. He just affects the game in so many small ways because of that defensive ability. And they didn't really have a sub for that last year. When he left the court, if he had foul trouble, excuse me, Rachel already mentioned Dirasimi and Koulibaly as potential subs for him. That certainly helps. But when he's on the floor, I mean, it's just a much better team. I believe the on-off numbers last year, they were about 15 to 20 points better when he played. Obviously, he didn't go off the court very often, but it's really important when he's out there. Am I wrong, Rachel?
No, you're right. And the thing is also that other teams have to defend completely differently against St. Bonaventure because they have this. Bona has this monolith in the middle. You know, he has a 7'8" wingspan for a 6'10" guy. It's pretty impressive as well. One of the really cool things about Oshun Oshuni is he is always trying to refine his craft. I talked to his coach at Putnam last year, Tom Espinosa, Putnam Science Academy, which is, you know, as we know, one of the best prep schools in the country for basketball. He said, you know, when he went from high school to college, he had to relearn his timing. He had to relearn, you know, positioning. He constantly had to do it, and he's still doing that as well. Oshun is also always studying shooters. He's studying where his position goes. Very defensive minded. He was injury bitten the first couple of years at St. Bonaventure. And, you know, he's just hard to take on under the basket because of the wingspan, because he's so smart, because he trains and he prepares. And again, like you said, I really believe that having those two new bigs in are going to help take a little bit of the pressure off him and make him a little fresher and keep him healthy also.
And last year, I just want to jump into his passing really blossomed. I mean, they were able to feed him the ball and make him a little more of a hub of the offense rather than just like a run and dunk kind of finisher type guy. He became a little more of a fulcrum. And I know Mark Schmidt has already raved about his passing, and I expect that to continue to improve this year.
Right. And that also starts from the rebounding as well, too. You know, he's had the 258 rebounds as a freshman. Bona played a few fewer games last year because of COVID, obviously. Their schedule was pared down to 21 games. He had about 200 rebounds. And again, you know, one thing Mark Schmidt preaches, he always says, offense is fickle, defense will get you everywhere. And that's another great thing about him. He is very defensive minded, which you have to be on the entire court.
And so are the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. This is a team that last year only allowed just over 61 points per game. Just look at the equation, folks. You bring back 5 starters who averaged in double figures. You bring back an elite level shot blocker in Oshuni, and you're a team that defensively, it's very tough to get to 60. I mean, Rachel, from what you see and from what Mark Schmidt has built here, what is it that allows them to have so much success on the defensive end of the floor?
Because that is what Mark preaches. They are a defense-first team. It starts with Lofton. It starts with ball protection. It starts with doing those little things. One thing, if you watch St. Bonaventure, you will notice, even though they have 5 guys on the court, they almost have 4 guards and 1 forward in Oshuni. You know, they play very much a perimeter style game. And again, rebounding is a big thing, but it is a point that Mark Schmidt will emphasize over and over and over. From the time those players were freshmen, the time Kyle Lofton, Oshun Oshuni, and Dominic Walsh were freshmen, it was just driven into them. That is their philosophy, is that the defense feeds the offense. And that's one thing they're going to build. And that's one thing when they recruit as well, too. They look for guys who can handle both sides of the ball. So, you know, we think of basketball in the years I've been covering. People say, oh, it's just all scoring. It's all scoring. I'm like, no. There has to be a fundamental placed on defense. And so much of that offense feeds off of it at St. Bonaventure. And they also try to keep it, you know, low scoring as well. And that's one thing about the A10. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but bear with me. The A10, as we know, it's a little bit of a top-heavy league as well, too. Especially they can control those lower-tier teams in the A10, like St. Joseph, like Fordham, like George Mason, which I think is going to have an upside, George Mason, this year. But that's another where they build their defensive skills. They take advantage of those teams that are not of the same caliber of them and say, all right, let's work, let's refine, let's do this. And then when we face the teams like Richmond, St. Louis, that's when we put it into action. We really see where the fruits pay off.
Yeah, we mentioned the length of Oshun inside, but the whole roster really has a lot of length, and the guards are big, they're strong. They're feisty. They can switch on to bigger guys and battle with them just because they have that intensity that Schmidt instills. And they've been in the weight room a couple times, those guys. Attaway can guard all 5 positions. Lofton and Welch have the length on the perimeter, and that helps them challenge shots, makes everything difficult. They're not getting or giving up easy buckets to teams. They're constantly challenging and making you work for everything.
Jim, let's stick with what Rachel said about the Atlantic 10. St. Bonaventure is obviously the favorite in this league this season. How does the rest of the conference shape up in the way that St. Bonaventure has a run to win this league again?
Yeah, I think the teams right behind them, in the 2 through 5 region, whether it's SLU, Richmond, Dayton's probably in there. VCU's got some injuries, so they're not quite at the top of their ability. But there's a kind of a wide range of outcomes for those teams. We don't know exactly what we're going to get. Richmond had a ton of injuries last year. SLU loses 2 program pillars in French and Goodwin. So we're not totally sure what we're going to get. That's what makes St. Bonaventure so appealing as a title pick, is they've got so much back compared to those teams. We know what we're getting from Schmidt and those 5 starters. Everybody else is trying to figure out their identity and where they're going to go this season. So, maybe St. Bonaventure doesn't win the league, but I'd be shocked if they finish worse than 2nd or 3rd, and they're an easy preseason title pick while those others figure out what they're going to be this year.
Right. In the A-10, even though, again, like I said, it's a very top-heavy league, I still say, every game is going to be a fight at some point or another, even though it's going to look very different this year. VCU, Bones Highland's gone, the injury factor is an issue. Rhode Island looks different. Fats Russell's now at Maryland. Richmond's got their 4 super seniors back as well. I think Richmond's going to be their biggest competition. Dayton as well always feels a competitive team. And Davidson, team that is another team is very 3-ball heavy. They shoot the 3. Hung Jung Lee, the kid was so impressive last year. I said that's a guy you want to watch for this year as well. But again, even though it's a top heavy comments, like Jim said, 5 starters coming back, averaging in double figures, the man in the middle. St. Bonaventure, they have the big gold star next to them. It's almost like the expectation is they have to win. If not, they're falling short as well. So there's so many things that are set up for this team to be successful. There are 2 teams I really like in the league as well. I think UMass is kind of my dark horse this year in the A-10. And again, I really want to see what Kim English does at George Mason this year to kind of take over that program and really bring it back to a competitive level.
Rachel, I'll tell you, we were talking about it earlier about guard play and having tough guards. And man, as much as Olean has talked about in the front court, Kyle Lofton is a beast. It's a Jersey kid who I think the kid's got steel right in his chest. Like, he is built up. He's a grown man. And you're talking about somebody who's averaged nearly 6 assists per game last year and is able to score the basketball well enough as well. And we know it's a guard game, especially once you get down to March. And I just look at what this team has with Lofton at the top of that in that backcourt and a guy who knows how to distribute. He says to me, a man who, if the ball's in his hands come next March and St. Bonaventure needs that play, they do have that figure in Kyle Lofton.
Right. Kyle playing in that NCAA tournament game. One of the lasting images I remember is him seeing with a towel in his head, his head in a towel. He was upset. Obviously, but this was a guy, he wanted to be in that position and he fell short. I really think that is going to be a lot of fuel as well. I look back on the 4 years with this team, Kyle's freshman year, Olean and Dominic Welsh, their freshman year, they were 1 game away from the NCAA tournament, lost to St. Louis in the A-10 title game. COVID wiped out everything their sophomore year. This year, the pieces were in place for them to be competitive, to be an A-10 contender, making the NCAA tournament. That expectation came further in the season. But now, especially a guy like Kyle, who has seen it all in the last 3 years, who's gone against those Power 6 teams, he is a leader. He has been a leader. Now, he knows what it takes. And I think he got so much valuable experience, especially from the last year and from knowing, hey, this is where I have to show out. I think that's going to help him and help his team so much. He has to be that leader this year, and he has to stay healthy. The whole team has to stay healthy this season if they want to be competitive and if they want to go back to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think some of the upside for the team, too, is in Lofton's shooting. He weirdly –
he loves to shoot, yeah.
Yeah. And he made 24% in A-10 play last year. The year before, he was 41%. So, the stroke is there. Perhaps maybe getting 2 or 3 extra minutes of rest per game might help.
Right.
He's not going to be totally worn out. They've got a little more depth at that position this time around. But if he's playing 35 minutes a game, that's good for you. That is a guy that controls the pace. He understands what Schmidt wants to do. He's kind of that classic extension of the coach at the point guard spot at this point. And that's something you really like to have heading into a season. And he's going to be the guy that controls things for them.
Let's talk about the coach. Because Mark Schmidt, in his 15th season, we put in perspective earlier in this podcast, first time that this program's ranked in 50 years. So that would tell you what kind of a job Mark Schmidt's done. And I got to tell you guys, I'll be candidly honest here, talking with people around the college basketball coaching landscape and folks all around the country. They say that Mark is 58 years old. If he might be 10 years older, we might be talking about him as the coaching star who's poised to get that high major job. And look, age is just a number. I think Mark Schmidt could be deserving of it now, but that's not how the coaching world nationally necessarily works. So the fact is, Mark Schmidt is someone who's done a lot at St. Bonaventure and deserves the credit for it. So, Jim, give us the perspective here from your mind of what this guy's been able to do and how he's been able to do it.
Yeah, I think he's a top 20 coach in America. I mean, it is difficult to win there. Some of the quotes he has about coaching at St. Bonaventure kind of, they get the goosebumps going. It's like, this place cares about basketball. It is a basketball town. The fan base is there for basketball. And that's what matters to him. He's like, I'm in the gym in winter. I don't care what's going on outside, what the weather's like. I'm here for basketball. And the success he's had just constantly over the years has been mega impressive. He's kept that St. Bonaventure team right in the upper half towards the top tier of the A-10 for his entire tenure. And it's cool to see him have a team like this, where it all has built up to this one season with these 5 senior starters that could really be, the big run that he's been waiting for, whether he goes to the Sweet 16 or beyond. It's all there for him, Rachel. It's quite a year for Mr. Schmidt.
Oh, absolutely. He came in from, I believe it was Robert Morris, and he built the program. He had a chance to take over a program that kind of hit the doldrums when he came in. He had success, at previous stops. He had the experience at Xavier as well. He came in, he recruited his players. He got them to buy into his style. He knows, what he has in the program. Again, like you said, very supportive basketball community, very supportive alumni base, very supportive donor base. In fact, we were with Mark Schmidt on a video conference earlier this week. He made a point to thank the donors. He said, if we don't do anything without their support, we can't win. I mean, I think I'd seen a graphic earlier this season that even though Bona has one of the lowest endowments of the top 25 teams, I mean, it is still a very beneficial team. I mean, have either of you been to the Riley Center for a game?
No, it's on the list. It is
insane.
Definitely on the list.
It is insane. I mean, that program feeds off it. He is beloved in the Olean, Allegheny, Southern Tier area, and in that. And he's also in a position where, he knows the community really well. Mark's also in a position he can pick and choose where he wants to go next, or if he wants to go anywhere next. I mean, the Boston College job was open last year, and he's a Boston College alum, and we all thought, oh Lord, here goes. He's going to go back. And it said a lot that he whether he was offered the job or not, we don't know that, but it said a lot that he's still at Bonaventure a year later. He believes, especially now, in what this program has and what they've accomplished. He's really put a lot of faith in these 5 guys on the court and in the people around him, whether it's assistants like Steve Curran, whether it's his Dobo guy, whether it's a ticket salesperson. It very much is a community. And I think that's another thing that's really helped that program function. It's very much a community atmosphere in the basketball program, which is a reflection of the St. Bonaventure community.
This is a feel-good story in every way. It's a coach who stayed home at his new home at St. Bonaventure. They have a historic level of expectations. They have all 5 starters back. They have an outstanding Inspector Gadget type of shot blocker and big man in Oshun. They have Kyle Lofton, a Jersey guard who seems to just breed toughness. St. Bonaventure is America's team in 2021-22. I'm just going to name them that now. They are America's team. They are everything that you hope for in a college basketball program. Because, look, the blue blood story, it carries its own weight, but that can get stale. To me, how could you not love the idea of St. Bonaventure on the big dance floor going into that second weekend and having all these starters back, having a coach who just fits the school perfectly, and having this community rally behind him? Guys, I think that this is one special story, and I don't think that this is like, oh, these expectations are too high for what this program is. I think the expectations are going to be relished, both relished by the team and the community. Everybody knows what's possible here at St. Bonaventure, and that's why the head coach is the head coach, and you didn't look at the Boston College situation and say, hey, let me go over there. So with that, Rachel, what can this team ceiling be? I mean, we've seen some national pundits say that St. Bonaventure is a Final Four dark horse. How do you feel?
I think how this team fares this season, again, I cannot say it enough. This team has to stay healthy. I mean, the injuries are always the X factor in sports, not just in college basketball. I want to see how the new players like Koulibaly, how Quadri Adams, how Jordan Simi, how they adapt quickly to St. Bonaventure's system. I want to see how St. Bonaventure cultivates its depth. I think the Bonnies are going to take their lumps a little early, especially with that non-conference schedule. You see, play UConn, another top 25 team. That's another game I'm really looking forward to. They play Buffalo, which is a MAC favorite this year, right up the road here. They're in that Charleston tournament as well. I think that's going to really make them road tested and prepare them well for that Atlantic 10 conference. And they've got to capitalize on the Atlantic 10 conference as well. But the one thing and you brought that up, one thing I love about college basketball, especially in the tournament, there's always that one little school that jumps out. I think back in the 90s, Canisius with John Beeline when they made the tournament, Princeton when they beat UCLA. I grew up in Annapolis. Navy was a team I always wanted to see upset. There's something I think, especially in the NCAA tournament, people like the little guy. They want to see those giant killers. So, I mean, that's another thing goes in the expectation of St. Bonaventure as well, too, is that they have to prove they can hang with the big dogs now, and they have all the tools to do it. It's just a matter of they've got to stay on course, take their lumps, adjust quickly.
Yeah, Rachel's mentioning that non-conference schedule, and I think that's huge because they really didn't get to play one last year, which made it hard to seed them in the tournament. They ended up in that 8-9 game, which is a tough spot to make a run out of if you got to play a 1-seed round 2. And this year, if they get some big wins in that non-conference portion, maybe they land at a higher seed line that sets up better for that Sweet 16 and potentially even farther run. So taking care of business and getting a couple big wins early is massive for them. I think they can do it too.
Well, this has been fun, and let's buckle up and see what can happen in Olean this year for the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. You can follow Rachel Lenzi at Rachel Lenzi on Twitter, RACHELLENZI. She's from the Buffalo News, does a great job covering all things in Buffalo, and she'll have Bonnies coverage throughout the season. You can follow Jim Root at second, the number 2, ND Chance Points. And Jim's also available at 3-Man Weave. Their season previews, folks, are second to none. And this has been another season preview for the Field of 68. Follow us at the Field of 68. I'm John Fanta, and that is your St. Bonaventure season preview. Big things ahead for the Bonnies.